All right. You got the three of us for the next couple of hours on the Real Kyper and Bourne Show. I'm Nick Kypreos, Justin Bourne, Sammy McKee, Derek Brandeo, and Jake Schultz with you for the next 2 hours, wherever you're watching, listening. Sportsnet 590 The Fan, Sportsnet 360, Sportsnet Plus. Glad you are all aboard. Now, for those of you who are watching and listening out there who go to work every day and are within an arm's length of any microwave oven, like, I feel for you today. I really do. Because what I am smelling for the past 20 minutes as we have a microwave oven just outside of our little studio here.
We sure do.
And if anybody out there, anybody at all, brings fish to work, I'm telling you right now to stop it. Stop it.
I mean, if you wrote out the unwritten rules of office etiquette, surely you don't microwave fish. It's got to be near the top of the list. I don't even know if they microwaved it. They may have made it fresh, caught it this morning and made it out there. This is crazy.
But I'm going home, and I'm going to
Market special.
I'm pouring gasoline on my clothes, and I'm burning them. They're not even going to make it in the house.
I would have thought as a Greek guy that this was
No.
This is too much.
No, this, you want to go garlic, I'm okay,
Yeah.
but not this,
No.
just fish, right? Little tzatziki, it's okay, but not this.
It's really bad. Like, it's just something you don't do.
I mean, I'll make it.
You'll make it.
We're going to do our best. I think eventually you're supposed to go nose blind according to the commercials. So at some point we should tune it out.
I'm still getting it.
Okay.
Feels very present.
My
Okay.
head starts spinning a little bit. I look like Linda Blair, right? Where my head goes right around in a full circle.
Is that The
You'll know
Exorcist?
why.
All right.
Is that what that is?
I think
Linda
so.
Blair?
The Exorcist?
Yeah, I'm going way back. Yeah, good for you. Good
movie,
pickup.
Never seen it.
Last night, the Leafs had the blue and white night.
Yes.
You wore
I
your nice
did.
coat in here.
I did.
And you went, and we haven't talked about it at all. How was your night?
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
MLSE Foundation, jam-packed. And it was like one of those rooms where, hey, I was a New York Ranger.
Yeah.
Pretty good, strong organization. I know there's great ones around the league, but I'm not too sure many could pull off a room like that last night. It was spectacular. The food was spectacular.
Where was it?
It was at Harbor Castle.
Oh, cool.
Everybody loved rubbing elbows with the current players. I hung out with the alumni. I got to tell you, though, Nick Robertson made a beeline for me.
Did he?
Yes. And I'm like a little nervous.
Yeah.
Because at times we have been critical of Nick Robertson.
Well, we're critical of when it needs be.
I don't
And
believe this. Finish the story. I don't believe it.
he couldn't have been nicer or more polite, introducing himself, just wanting to say hello. No mention at all about hating our show or hating me. He was like...
That was my next question. Who didn't even lean on you?
Genuinely nice as anybody you'll ever meet.
And let me tell you, this is a butter-uppable show.
Oh, no. I'm now I got two thoughts in my head.
Yeah.
The first one is Nick Robertson is now an untouchable on this show.
He doesn't get enough of an opportunity for someone who... how is he not in the top six?
How is he not on the power play? Right?
What are the Leafs doing?
Why isn't he on a long-term deal? 11 large, whatever. Nick's like...
You go and do something like this.
Got the green light.
And totally redeem yourself.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
So, like, he's a young man.
Yeah.
Like, did he know that you have a show? Like, was he aware of, what you do?
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if he does or not. Better if he doesn't.
For sure.
Right? Better if he doesn't.
If Connor Bedard had just done this to Jeremy Roenick, we wouldn't be in the pickle we're in as a nation today.
Well, I just have a hard time. Like, I would find it kind of tough in your position because you're part of the alumni association. You have to go and do these events and rub shoulders and do all that stuff. But you're very forthright. You're very honest about how you feel about guys. So it's a very, but Nick Robertson is not the guy that I would expect to be like, hey, buddy, nice to meet you. You know, I would say he catches a little bit on this show.
Listen, buddy, I said he's a 25 goal scorer.
You did. That's true.
So now the other thought in my mind is if I'm going to have like 15 more guys be as nice to me as Nick was, I'm going to have to quit this show.
Yeah, you'll be completely neutered.
I'm done.
Yeah,
I'm done.
No teeth at all.
So
Don't go to any more events. That's the lesson.
dodged a few here and there. And no.
Play some craps or what?
Played some craps. Fun. Yeah, fun. I mean, what they do is they give you real chips. You play real poker, blackjack, craps, and then you load up and then you go redeem for great prizes.
That's pretty cool.
But it was great, and all the guys were great too. And Willie, arguably the most popular guy there with the pictures and the autographs, and every player was like great for. Of course, the whole room.
Yeah, that's
nice.
work. They put in work. That's a real effort for those guys.
Yeah.
I watched a little clip, a social clip. Our wonderful Emily Agard was there. I don't know if you ran into her or not.
I saw her.
But she was doing
Q&As.
interviews, and she went up to all the guys and she interviewed Matthews about it's like, what are you wearing tonight or whatever.
Yeah.
And he had like this detailed description of
Buddy,
this guy
I
had
got some Atelier Monroe stuff myself.
and he had like the turtleneck. Yeah. Oh, Mr. Fancy Pants. And then he went over and she was like, what are you wearing, Joseph Wall? He's like, oh, I wore this one last year. And then she asked the same thing to Ekman Larson. He's like, well, I got two suits and I
two
rotate.
suits all year. It's like, God.
There's two different types of guys.
Totally.
Morgan Rielly was the only one wearing, I think, a tie, or one of the few guys with a tie. And I think Emily asked him if he did his tie on his own, and he straight-faced looked at her and said, yeah, I'm a grown-up.
I'm a grown-up.
I am not.
I will say, if you go through wardrobe here at Sportsnet, there's only one person whose ties are all permanently tied up, and it's Colby Armstrong.
But
he can't do it back up. So he just slips them over his neck
there's
and
no
hangs them
signs
up.
that Elliot knows how to do a tie either.
No, he does it every day.
Or he's
There's
just
no
not tied.
signs.
There's just not
I
tight
have
enough.
7 ties in my closet, all tied.
Oh, that is so
all tied.
embarrassing.
Yeah, all tied. They're all tied.
The thing is, like, you know that people do it, so it's possible, and
Yes.
you're a smart, capable guy.
Yes.
Just learn.
I go on YouTube every time.
dress codes.
There's YouTube videos of how to tie a tie that have like 8 million views. Or
And I do it
something.
every time.
Yeah.
I'm 7 of those. 7 million.
All right, in 25 minutes, we'll welcome in a guy that also took in last night, Brad May, former NHLer. Always fun to have him.
Oh, he was there last
on
night?
the show. Yeah, oh yeah.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, we'll get his thoughts as well on last night. But so where are we with just one game this week, which kind of sucks.
It does. I think this is like a bit of an injury healing period. Like if you miss one game, you get a pretty long stretch. So we're looking at Tavares, Nyes, Yarncroc, Quillen, all skated ahead of practice today. Timmins, Hockenpah, like Stolarz. They got a lot of guys getting some rest here, which is, I guess, not a bad thing.
Okay. You want to start with Craig Berube on Stolarz?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, more of that today, conditioning, things like that. I think that, conditioning is probably one of the biggest things, being out as long as he has. So goalies are the same as forwards and D, they need conditioning.
Was Berube at the
Yeah, he
event
was.
last night? Nice.
Yeah.
Good. You have a chance to talk to him?
I did not. I saw him, and I was going to go say hi,
Come on
share
our
a
show.
few pleasantries, but then I lost him, which is hard because he's a big guy now.
Big guy.
Yeah. I mean, the Stolarz thing's going to be interesting. I imagine we're going to see him before
Yeah, he said
Four Nations.
the question was posed to him today, would you like to have him back before the Four Nations break? And of course he said yes. It wasn't will he play before the Four Nations break. That wasn't the question.
But he's going to. He says it's just a matter of conditioning now.
You'd
Stolarz
never
said.
put him Saturday versus Edmonton.
No shot.
No shot.
Tuesday against Calgary, maybe a little bit more
I think that's
possible.
what we're looking at here, a week today.
No, I'd go, well, depending again on what kind of night you may have had in Edmonton, but I see Wall, Stolarz, Wall to finish out the
So
four-game
he
road
just
trip.
gets one in on his way.
Gets one in
Yeah.
Against Seattle, who's one of the worst teams in the league.
against Seattle.
Yeah.
That's how I would play it out.
All right, well, let's follow up on Stolarz' headspace, how he's been feeling about things since missing time.
He's been around. He's a good pro. He's been very positive about everything, around us every day. And, he's been in a good frame of mind, I think, with the ball. It's one of those things you can't control. It happened. And he's dealt with it and done what he has to do to get back.
So I'm really interested, and I'll ask you two guys. So after, because this is like, it's kind of a countdown to summer break here with the 2 sort of weeks until they get a 2-week break. And you'll get through these games and maybe he'll play one. But once you come back, I think it's February 22nd is the first game back against the Carolina Hurricanes.
Yep.
How do you think they're going to break this down with Stolarz and Wall in terms of a split? Like, in assuming they both get through this stretch healthy, which, it's just going to make that assumption here, which may be a dangerous one to make. But will it be a split? Like, is Wall earn the right to start and be the start? Like, it's just going to be really interesting with the new dynamic here to see how they do it. How do you think?
I personally don't see any way to approach it other than a 50-50 split. We started the season going, maybe Wall gets a few more games than Stolarz. They clearly want him to be the guy, younger, longer contract. 2 weeks into the year, it was like, this is clearly Stolarz' team. We'll see if Wall can ever get back to being the guy. Stolarz is the guy. It's just gone back and forth. I think it's almost like a fresh start after the break. Game. One of you show us you're the guy.
Yeah, I don't think I'm not far off on what you just said. If one happens to have a really exceptional game, that you could turn it into a 2 or 3 game stretch, but I don't see anything going much further than that.
Yeah. And I really feel like whoever plays better in April is going to be the playoff goalie.
I do get a sense now that as much as they love Joseph Wall, there seems to be this thought that you can't stretch him out too long here. That maybe he can fatigue or come to a not a wall, but literal wall where you say, okay, he needs to reset. He needs a rest.
Yeah, well, anyone.
Right?
I mean,
like he's not
in sports, as you get more tired, you're more prone to injury.
He's not. I don't think he'll ever be a horse. When I mean that, ever envision him playing like 50 games, 60 games, 55 games. He's not that guy, I don't think. And if there is ever an argument that 2 goalies can work to win a Stanley Cup, I think this is the one that has to be played out here for the Toronto Maple Leafs, that Joseph Wall can go through stretches where he's a world-class goaltender and nothing's getting by him. And then if you see a breakdown or if it looks like he's getting tired again, you don't let him play through it. You put in Stolarz.
Yeah, the one thing I would encourage them is if you go into game 1 and say Wall's been the best over the last few weeks and he's going to be the playoff go-to guy, if he has a tough night in night 1, I'd make the change. I would say use this tandem. You look at Ullmark and Swayman in Boston the one year, right? They decided Ullmark was the guy, and they rode him all the way to game 7 by the time it was too late. They made a switch in game 7. Yeah. If you're going to be a tandem, be a tandem. And I don't think those guys can take that personally. We're just saying, hey, you play well, you get to play.
I don't see a scenario where he plays really poorly. I think, he could lose 4-2 and you could still put in Joseph Wall in game 2. You could be down 1-0 in the series.
Yep.
And again,
I'm not opposed to that.
And whatever the optics was that night, did he let in 2 soft goals? Was he just his head not into it? Like, there has to be something of substance.
So 2 games then. 2 games in a row.
Yeah,
if you're not
going,
seeing it.
You're not going down 2-0 and not making a goalie change.
Right.
But that's as short of a leash I see from here on in between the two of them.
Yeah, I think you're right. The point is that you can't just say, all right, the whole season was a duel for the starters crease, and now it's this guy's net in playoffs.
You're 100% right. That's not what's going to happen from here on in, Sammy.
Yeah. But looking ahead here, you do have a real competitive advantage if you have both these guys healthy.
Because both are healthy in playoffs, you're going to get decent goaltending.
And I mean, just if you're trying to solidify the first place in the Atlantic Division here, which they've never done, having both of these guys healthy and playing well, where you don't necessarily have to ride one or the other and worry about them tiring out or worrying about injury, and have them both sort of fresh heading towards April, it's a really big competitive advantage. You just hope to God they both can stay healthy.
It
That's
is really a three-legged race to the finish line here in the Atlantic. Like, I mean, someone's going to win the division with 102 points. It's probably going to be 105 by the time it's all said and done, but boy.
Yeah. And right now, you give the Leafs the advantage in net over
Bob
Bobrovsky and over Vasilevsky and certainly over Swayman. Like right now.
What about Miralainen?
Right?
Yeah.
It is. Listen, Mitch Marner's having a hell of a season. We know that. He's got, almost 20 points ahead of Willie Nylander in scoring on the Leafs. Like, think about that, what kind of year Marner's having. Yet, there's an argument to be said that the biggest story of the Leafs season so far are those two goalies.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Where you're like, even with Mitch's top 3 or 4 in scoring in the league, where is this team without those two goalies this season?
Yeah, I mean, it was something that we started the year as a major question mark for the team that is no longer even a discussion. Read an article in The Athletic today about like every team's like fatal flaw. The Leafs wasn't goaltending. You know, it was their top 4 D. You know, they don't have an elite number 1 D. And it's like,
allow me to be positive here for a second.
I think we were being positive.
Maybe a little bit too positive. This is what gives me hope that this year could be potentially different. Because last year they played Samsonov for too many games in the playoffs, and it cost them dearly. And they put in Wall, and the series changed totally. He gets hurt, doesn't play at Game 7. They only score 1 in Game 7. I understand that, but talk about overtime, blah, blah, blah. And it's every year when they've lost, they've had the second best goalies. Mm-hmm. And it's been a consistent theme throughout this era. That does give me a little bit of hope. A little bit of hope. I know you're making the face. But
I cringe a little bit.
It gives me a bit of hope. Is that fair or no? You're cringing.
I cringe a little bit because
they're unproven.
I think I'm okay with the unproven part because then you're just you got to kind of bank on what you saw over 82 games to have a trickle effect in even with no experience.
Yeah,
like you can't go and have those type of seasons out of both of them when they've been healthy. To fall off the cliff because it's the playoffs now.
Right.
So I'm okay with that. What I do kind of cringe a little bit is that in the past, in the playoffs, where you haven't gotten that save necessarily and you're getting it now, that you might still find ways to have a playoff game look like what we saw Saturday night against the Ottawa Senators, where it's like
you still can't score.
Yeah. Where it's like there's not enough depth, and now we're still back to that age-old problem of if 16 and 34 and 88 don't do it, then you will have better goaltending
and still
that's still lost 2-1.
Buddy, not when number 19 in white and blue comes back and shoots at the net. Kelly Yarncroc coming back.
Oh, yeah.
Who's excited?
Me.
That's the most reluctant me ever.
Well, he's playing. He's out in the ice. He's skating. He got
He's
a normal color.
jersey.
Yeah. So getting there.
Here's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't know if you're going to see him soon.
No?
After Four Nations.
Well, yeah, I don't know. There's you got to make sure that you can fit them all in still, right?
Mm.
With the cap.
Kelly Yarncroc
they might have to lose somebody to bring him on board.
Yeah. He's 33 years old, 32 years old, or somewhere around there. Had 20 goals in 2023. Last year he had 10 in 52 games. At least he's someone who, down the lineup, you trust, who can play, and if he gets it near the net, he can shoot it in. He's a nice shot. He's just someone a bit better.
You're building him up too much.
You don't think he's a bit better than Nick Robertson?
He's.
No, not Nick Robertson. I'm going to pick a different name.
Marcus
Holmberg?
You've gone
he's
back
been better.
And forth on him.
No.
Because you've loved him, not liked him.
I didn't like him.
Last year you liked him.
No, for sure. He built. In my mind, he built up a better game for me.
Mm-hmm.
And he won't hurt for sure.
Yeah.
But I don't know whether or not if there's a big goal that's needed that who's our guest the other day that just said the Nick Paul, right?
Mm-hmm. Simmer yesterday.
Simmer.
Well,
of course.
I can tell
Simmer
you.
is like can he be a Nick Paul?
Here's his stat line against the Boston Bruins. He played all 7 games. 0, 0, 0, 0 PIMS, -2, So
No.
we're back to, hey guys, you really need to kind of do something between now and the trade deadline to reinforce when you only,
I'm
have a goaltending duo that gives up 2 goals, you don't lose.
You need someone else who can score, but you're not going to be able to patch every hole before playoffs. And Calle Yarncroc is a better player than a lot of these sort of halfway in and out guys they got. At least he can sometimes score. I don't know that you're going to get more from, again, Holmberg, Dewar, Lorentz, Reaves. Go through the lineup of bottom 6 guys right now.
All right. Well, Max Pacioretty looks like he's coming back in. Should we get Craig Bruby's thoughts on Max?
Yeah, the size and guy that can get to the net, around the net. We went over some stuff today about, Ottawa game, and, we had the puck a lot in the offensive zone, did a lot of good things, but still need to generate some second and third chances around the net a little bit more and some greasy goals. We didn't do enough of that in that game. Offense kind of comes and goes throughout the year. You just got to keep digging in. We got to keep playing good defense, keep checking. I think we're doing a real good job of that. And, our ozone time's gone up lately, and that's important too because now we're not playing in our own zone, but we got to generate more when we're in there.
Ozone time has gone up lately. Is that right?
I think for Max, it's just a matter of his energy as well because up until he's gotten hurt the last little while, he was a big, impactful guy physically. Can he still carry that on the next 30 games?
He certainly made it sound like it's been a wear on him, in a lot of his interviews. But he is 3 games, I think, from collecting an extra $300,000 or something. So he'll probably play for a bit here.
He's starting to feel better.
Heals a few ailments.
That'll take care
Maximilian Kolenda Pacioretty, which I just learned is his name.
I think
take care of the gas money for the boat this summer.
Yeah, he'll get you around the lake.
What they got from him to start the season to this point is way more than I even expected to get from him at all. I really was worried that remember we had the conversations he was going to get to his 9-game mark.
Yeah.
It was touch and go there for a little bit. So this is a guy you just bubble wrap for playoffs. Maybe he plays in 2 or 3 playoff games. He shoots one in the net.
He's exactly what I was talking about, Yarncroc, except a guy who actually could shoot it in, more likely.
Yeah.
I'm more interested in what he had to say on Morgan and McCabe, on Rielly playing with their best defenseman. I don't know if you want to call McCabe, but let's check in on that one.
Well, I think they've been, if I look at, going number-wise, I think that Morgan's numbers have, gone up with the offensive side of things, chances for and stuff, and been a little bit more involved that way. So, again, it's just a little bit more time needed, I think, bigger sample size with it, and 3 games? And, Kaber's going back on his offside. I know he played it last year, but it's still an adjustment for him, even though he played last year mostly on his offside. So he's still adjusting a little bit to it.
More offensive from Rielly? You seen
Shots.
that?
He's had more shots.
Yeah.
I mean, not on goal. He's had more attempts.
Okay. He's filtering them towards the cage.
Right. To start.
Yeah. He's trying to get more involved.
Mm-hmm.
He's probably going to end up gambling a little bit more here, but what's he got, 22 points?
Sounds about right. Can confirm that for you.
All right. You want to go a little hypothetical here?
Yeah, let's have it.
On me?
Yep. 22 points, correct, in 50 games.
What about trading Morgan? And I know we had briefly talked about this last week, and my first thought was who's gonna fill in 22 minutes a night, and who's gonna still look like a threat back there? And can you really envision this team without Morgan Rielly?
How about new?
I can if there's a world where you think you can get better at defense. And I'm not sure that world doesn't exist.
Okay. So
Mid-season.
So is he, let's just say he continues to be the player that he is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yeah.
That he's just having this off season right now that this is Morgan the rest of the year.
I like hypotheticals.
Okay?
Yeah.
Is your chances still better with an average Morgan and the rest of the team, or possibly flipping Morgan and getting stronger somewhere else, and then trying to find a way to plug that blue line of that hole that he's left with just something else that legitimately is being paid for 30 points instead of the $7.5 million that you're going to pay for 35 points.
Tough, Kip. Been on this show with you the past couple weeks, and we've said things like, don't have a guy who can skate the puck up or make a play or do these offensive things. You talked about liking Sanderson up the rink and Shabbat up the rink and all that. Like, I don't know that taking away Morgan and adding more Benoit or more Timmins or more Myers.
No. You'd have to go out and find another skating defenseman.
Mike Matheson.
Great example. Okay? Great example.
Perfect example, in fact.
What's Matheson make?
3. Let me look.
Gotta be
So
more than that.
if you can move Morgan out and plug him with a Matheson type of player.
He makes 4.8 this year and next.
And let me finish this for you.
Yeah.
Okay? So now Morgan, who has a complete no move.
Yeah, a complete no move, by the way. And many years left.
Would you not now knock on the door of Jimmy Rutherford?
Oh, my God.
And you flip Morgan for JT Miller, who are roughly, I think, $500,000 each off the salary cap. So that's looked after. They're both, I think, relatively the same age, and I think they both have relatively the same amount of years left on their contract, which is 5 years. So does that make the Leafs better? Morgan gets to go home. Okay?
Yep.
Morgan's going to say no to a lot of teams. Going home to British Columbia maybe is the one team that Morgan would say yes to.
Can be a second pair guy there. Well, it's a lot of money for second pair, but he's not going to play with Quinn.
Would that excite Vancouver?
Yeah. Could for sure. I think it depends on if you believe that this is decline from Rielly or an off season from Rielly. Because guys have off seasons, and every time they have them in their 30s, we go, is this the end? And then sometimes there's several decent years after. Sometimes there's not.
Leaf fans cannot look any further than April, May, and June. Next season might as well be 100 years
No, but
from
I'm
now.
talking about if you're the Canucks, you have to believe that there's more. You don't make this deal if you think you're getting a 30-point D-man.
You got to get JT Miller out of that room, okay?
By the way, their
And we're-
contracts expire the same year.
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll talk about this more in greater detail of what's going on in Vancouver on a national hour, but like...
Yes, I do, is your answer. I do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do
it. And again, this is all hypothetical. Please, this is not, I'm not throwing this on.
We're a podcast.
We're not.
We're a podcast.
We're not,
People know it's hypothetical.
But we're just throwing it out there whether or not this could work. And would JT Miller excite you, Sammy, on the Toronto Maple Leafs?
It's taking a stick of dynamite to a hockey team.
I honestly, Willie is so different than Pettersson. Like, I think, people would hear that and be like, oh, is Miller going to have this problem with another guy? These guys work hard. The Leafs core four, those guys are, I know Willie's got his dog moments, but.
I've long thought JT Miller's a very good player, and I like him. I think he's fiery. I think he brings a lot of what you would sort of like the Leafs to have. We talk about the stars that we wish had the killer
Braden
instinct.
Shen last night.
Oh, did he ever? I just don't know if it's going to work here. I just
listen. I'm with you.
You know what I mean?
don't know either. I don't know either.
And is
Would
Morgan
you do it? I can't believe I haven't asked that. It's bad
I'd have
radio.
to really, really do my homework, and the first thing I would do is fly to Vancouver and try to get to the people that could better explain to me what happened, and to know whether or not I want JT Miller in this Toronto Maple Leaf dressing room.
So now your decor is McCabe and Tanev, OEL, and you got a bunch of bottom sixes after that.
Well, I'm not going to the playoffs with that.
I know you're adding.
I'm gonna give up another asset, and if I need to get a $5 or $6 million defenseman, I'm gonna convince a team to eat half of it, and I'll give you another good piece. and I will bring in a very good defenseman for $2.5-3 million.
Yeah, again, this is almost like
Sammy, you okay over there?
I love the thought. I think it's a fascinating. Like that would be one trade that
you're
would
allowed
be
to think about it.
one of the more fascinating trades. It really would be.
Yeah. I mean, I do think that Rielly is not in decline. I do think that he's just having a tough year. Sometimes it's a snowball of things.
This is the worst year to have a tough year in 10 tries, especially if you're
For the
Brendan
Leafs.
Shanahan.
Yes.
His worst season couldn't come at a worse time than right now.
Well,
I need good Morgan right now, and I won in April and May.
If Morgan is, a point per game playoff guy who's playing 22 minutes a night and whatever, maybe on the power play, you don't care about this regular season that much.
But you're hoping and guessing.
You are hoping. JT Miller is a prayer and I don't know.
But it's not like JT Miller is on a 2-year contract or he's a UFA.
Yeah.
He's here till 2030. Like it's making a commitment to a very combustible guy for one of your more popular teammates in Morgan
during
Rielly.
his decline years in a complete hotbed of bright spotlight.
Talk about from the frying pan into the fire.
And to your point, like JT Miller, an American in Vancouver, at times must be rolling his eyes going, these Canadians are nuts here for this game. Does he want to go from that market to as crazy as one in Toronto?
You'll see JT Miller blue and white night and you'll be black and blue. He'll come out swinging, man.
Yes. He won't be as nice to me as Nick Robertson.
Well, if he's good, he will, because that's, how we base our analysis.
Anyways.
Fun thought.
Fun thought.
What about Braden Shen? The guy who fought last night.
Sammy wants.
Yes, but I think, again,
2 years left, I think, just over 6.
It will be
33 years old.
You're going to, that one for sure all day long is Easton Cowan, and probably.
You still think at this point, I mean, he's got 2 years left. That's one that was thrown to me. Showed up my buddy Mike. He texted me that. He's like, did they ever trade him?
Doug Armstrong has some great quotes today.
I don't know what's going on in St. Louis right now, but I would think that he thinks that he's got a Washington Capital type situation, that he could flip this thing back in a year or two, and it would probably still include him and Colton Parayko. There might not be a general manager that gets more calls on one player than Doug Armstrong on Colton Parayko. The Leafs Leafs can't stop knocking on that door, but it's not getting answered.
I got to find these quotes from Armstrong, but he says he takes calls from everyone. He ends up hanging up the phone going, I see what's in it for him, but what's in it for me?
Oh, God, we're so late. On a day we had nothing to – hey, but, Braden Shed, remember when he came on our show and said that he wanted all the guys that were around the same age, like the 25 range? Remember that?
Yeah.
And then he's old. I don't know, maybe. Anyways, just a thought.
Okay.
We'll take a quick break. When we return, Mayday. Brad May, former NHLer, Stanley Cup champion, up next on The Real Kipper and Bourne Show. Welcome back to The Real Kipper and Bourne Show. All right, let's welcome him in. Mayday. Brad May, fresh off his monumental win at the blackjack table last night. What'd you do with all your chips? Did you go and cash them in for a nice new color television or anything?
You know what? I did so well. I actually shared them with one of the guys sitting at my table. So he ended up walking away with thousands and thousands of, I don't know, not dollars, but value of chips. And I think he did well in the silent auction.
Was it Nick Robertson?
You know, it was really nice. It was a great night. The MLSE does a fantastic job, but obviously the Toronto Maple Leafs, current players were there, a bunch of old guys like Nick and I, and we had a great time interacting with one another, but obviously it's for the fans.
And it's one thing that never wavers. I know there's a lot of frustrated fans out there, including our own Sammy McKee here, but it really is a great reminder last night, Mayday, on the connection between the Toronto Maple Leaf brand and more specifically the current players out there walking amongst the fans and being able to interact.
Yeah, I think you know what, it's a big part of the job. I mean, that's like the first point of contact for so many, and obviously, the lucky ones that were able to share the experience. The blue and white gala, everybody enjoyed it. Obviously, it's for philanthropy. Obviously, the organization wants to do good work within Toronto and in Southern Ontario. Um, and for the players, I think it's a great lesson that you're supported, but you have to support the fans too, and certainly your business partners. So a lot of young guys, they're growing up quick, they're thrown into the fire as an NHL player, but a big part of that is how they can communicate with those people and sell themselves. You never know, your career ends, and somebody in that room, it might be his next boss, or there could be some endeavors together. So there's a lot to build on when you actually get out in the community as a professional athlete.
Brad, how has that changed over the years from when you were a player to now? Are players more ready and built for it, or is it like maybe less need to sell the game now that it's more of an accepted global game?
Coming from me, obviously, I only have my own perspective, and that's obviously as a former player. It was pressed on us as young players in Buffalo with the Sabres organization was to be not only a family member, a teammate, one of the guys on the team, but you have to be part of the community. And that loyalty was really pushed back in the day. I think today, that just the economics of hockey, maybe it's not as much of the loyalty for 10 15 years for each player. However, you've got to honor your teammates, and you got to honor the people that are helping you get through. That's obviously the sponsorship dollars and everything else. And the other thing is being a face of the National Hockey League. It's a dream come true for these guys to play in the NHL. And when you get into it and you're working every day, not that you take it for granted, but you may not be as excited as you once were when you're stepping on the ice for your first time. I think these moments give these players perspective, and it's a great outreach.
You're watching and listening to Brad May, former NHLer, Stanley Cup champion. Mayday, it wasn't too long ago when we were talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs being this team that needed to find a way to get a little tougher, meaner, heavier. And it seems like under the Craig Berube era here, that's no longer an issue. And then Saturday night, it's like, how do we get these guys to score? And overall, where do you see the balance after 50 games?
Well, I'm looking at it. I wrote some notes down here today just to show you they're right here.
Nice homework.
But in doing so, here's the one thing I want to say: the Toronto Maple Leafs have to make this year, and the press to finish first in their division. If I'm not mistaken, in the era of the great young players that are now right in the prime of their careers, they have not won a division title, except for, I want to say, in the bubble, the one year when there was no fans. They possibly finished first. It's very important. Obviously, you're gonna every team you're gonna face in the playoffs is gonna be rolling. They're gonna be playing great, but that difference of having that first series that you can possibly get through as a first seed, and then you never know what upset happens, in the other series and down the line as it cascades. So I think the Toronto Maple Leafs, I know last year it was about Austin Matthews scoring 70 goals, and we were all on that watch. We were all excited to see it. I think the fan base and all of us, the press is actually for them to finish first in their division, prove to themselves that they actually can do it, play playoff hockey for the next 2 months or the 2 months leading into the playoffs after the trade deadline, and really even segment their games in, I don't know, 3 out of 5 series, win every series, set yourself up that you actually achieve the goals, short-term goals, and all of a sudden confidence is gained by that. And then when they roll in and they're down by a game possibly, they know that they can come back because they've been doing it for the last couple months. You look at the teams, St. Louis Blues, they were in last place under Craig Berube on January 4th that season. They ended up winning the Stanley Cup. They were the best team going into the playoffs, but they proved it for months. You just can't turn the light switch on. It's not the best team that wins the Stanley Cup. It's the team that's playing best at that time.
Brad, right now looking around the league, it's crazy how teams are bunched together. Like there's like 11 teams that the Leafs could play in the first round of the playoffs at this point. So it's just a unique year in that way. The Leafs stars seem to be what set them apart on most nights. These guys either show up and they score and they win, or they don't and they have a tougher night. Heading into playoffs, how do you feel about that core four and their past playoff experiences? Do you think that that's setting them up to maybe learn from it? Have you seen people in their career that can find it in the playoffs the way the core four haven't as of yet?
Well, I mean, the time or that's going to be in front of us. We don't have that answer every year. I'm a Buffalo Bills fan. I thought this year was Josh Allen's time. Clearly, that didn't happen. He faced Patrick Mahomes, who's perfect. This guy's actually, it's amazing what he did in football. But for the Toronto Maple Leafs, I think your best players have to be rolling. Morgan Rielly, I think he's got another gear to get to, and that'll be really fun to watch when he starts playing, at another level. Marner's been good all season, and he's obviously playing for something bigger than just, his team in the moment. He's playing for his career and going forward and being one of the best players in the game. But I think it's about building that team and the trust on the bottom six. I think if I was to ask the bottom six, if I had them in a room by themselves, I would say, what is your identity? I don't know if they know what that is. They're all good hockey players. They all can skate. They all can do great things. But you know what? You got to somehow find something different. A third line that could, a Peluso, McKay, and Bobby Holik line. We knew exactly who they were. They didn't have to show up and fake it. They played the game the way I think our bottom six in Toronto have to figure out and carve out a little bit more of an identity. And I think that's on the physical side. And the tenacious side, drawing penalties is probably the biggest thing that they can do to set the big boys up on the power play. But we need a little bit more of an identity, toughness on the bottom end.
You know what? That kind of leads me right into my next question and comment to you. And you're probably the perfect guy when it comes to like the role of Ryan Reaves. Last week, we saw him participate in his first fight of the season here. And the one thing that I feel for Ryan a little bit, and it's one thing that me and you didn't have to ever worry about, that's finding a dance partner.
Right.
There was like 2 or 3 on every team. But yet, if there isn't a willing participant for Ryan, where is his role? And, what can he do when there isn't one? And for the most part, I think he's done actually pretty well. In finding ways to maybe take the body every once in a while. But, where do you see Ryan or the role today, if it in fact still exists?
Yeah, I'm not so sure it does, Nick. I think obviously it's a long season. There's going to be moments where, that nuclear option actually is amazing to have. But for Ryan, I think I watched him and I was a broadcaster in Vegas, and he was a really good piece to that puzzle in Las Vegas. He had the ability to get in on the forecheck and create the first hits. At one time, he was the leading hit leader, him and William Carrier in the National Hockey League. It's not hitting every once in a while. It's finishing your check every chance it presents itself without taking yourself out of the play. I think if he stays disciplined and he actually keeps that focus and maybe doesn't get into the shenanigans, which some of us want to see, I know I do, but it doesn't present itself nightly. He's a big, strong guy. Him on the bench definitely is a message, but the message of opposing coaches are giving their players. And we saw it in Montreal. They're up by 3 goals a week and a bit ago. When Montreal was leading, Toronto came back and won that game. But Arbor Jackeye turned him down, pointed at the score clock. You have coaches that are telling their players, leave him on the ice. Do not go to the penalty box. We don't want you doing that. And I think you're going to see more of that when it's so tight, where one penalty could cost your team. Those players are afraid to be in that position, and they're not going to do that, especially once their coach has already given the marching orders.
How different do you think a team can? So we have this kind of a loose theory here on this show that, Berube wants him to play a more straightforward game, hit, forecheck, be direct, but that takes intensity and effort, and it's really hard to do that 82 times. There are some games where they don't have it, and it doesn't look pretty. Are they able to flip a switch in playoffs? Like, is it possible for them to look like Craig Berube wants them to without us seeing it all the time in the regular season?
I mean, I guess in theory it's possible. I would say that you got no chance if
Okay.
you don't identify who you are. The whole idea, the other part for Ryan Reaves, and this goes for every player, it's what type of game are you playing? I know you're all skilled and you can make passes and get through the neutral zone and on, odd man or even situations where it's 3-on-3. Get the puck behind those D. Ryan Reaves is a better player when he knows where the puck is headed for sure than the guy that's actually waiting for a pass at the blue line. If I'm his left winger, I know he's on my line. I'm either hard rimming it, a little soft chip behind a defenseman that doesn't want to get hit by that big body. As a teammate, I could set Ryan Reaves up to be a better player and more effective. I know not me today, but as a player, I do think that if they can figure out that and that identity, they have the speed. Ryan Reaves is a faster player, again, when he can anticipate where the puck is headed. I think a lot of times these players are so good, they believe they can make really, fancy plays into the middle and try to outskill the other team. Yes, you can at times, but when you get to the playoffs, that predictability of the puck going behind the defenseman makes you a better player. It certainly made me a better player, and I love playing guys that actually understood that for me. And maybe didn't give them the outcome they wanted if they wanted points necessarily, but if you wanted 45 seconds of a shift to tire out the top players on the other team in the offensive zone, sign me up. And by the way, that's a great place to be.
I only got like a minute here, but I wanted just to follow it up real quickly on your comments on Pacioretty, who I think has done a fantastic job when he's been in for the first 40, 45 games. And I don't know exactly if there's a correlation to the heavy contact that he's had throughout the beginning of the season that's kept him out of the last little while here. But what are the odds of a guy that's been a top 6 guy and a 30-goal scorer to play this type of role now moving forward, especially in April and May when you need it most?
First of all, Max Pacioretty wears number 67. It's not a prediction. Of course, I can be way off. I think the Toronto Maple Leafs win the Stanley Cup this year.
Oh, my God.
I say this. I do. Now, granted, everything has to happen.
Mic drop.
If they do it, Max Pacioretty wears 67. Last time they won it was 1967. There has to be some type of synergy here. He's a captain of the Montreal Canadiens. He now plays for the complete, the rival, the Toronto Maple Leafs. What better place to have a guy like that come in and actually make that impact? Can he do it? Absolutely. You don't lose your skill overnight. You lose your desire to work on those skills. The time off for Max Pacioretty to actually understand that the window is closing in his career to actually make a real impact.
Mayday.
I'm sure he's focused and I'm sure he's ready to roll. I'm excited about Toronto. So many things have to happen, Nick. They're not going to win it tomorrow if it started. But this team actually is a better team than they've been in the last 10 years by far because they can win tight games.
Mayday. Would Patch fight his mom?
I'd fight my mom to win another Stanley Cup.
Hey, I love that. My mom's not so proud of me. However, she's the one who instilled this fire into me anyway. So God bless you, Mom. I love you, but I would. For sure.
We love you, Mrs. May. Thanks for putting up with it.
Great finish to our segment here, Mayday. Thanks for doing this, pal. Always great seeing you.
Thanks so much, man.
All right, that was Brad May. Our thanks to him. We still got another hour as we go national. We'll try to figure out what the heck's going on. Jimmy Rutherford, president of the Vancouver Canucks, spoke on his 2 little boys who do not get along. Back after these words. More Real Kyper and Bourne. We welcome everybody into the National Hour. On the Real Kyper and Bourne Show, we are live on Sportsnet 650 in Vancouver and Sportsnet 960 in Calgary. This hour of Real Kyper and Bourne brought to you by Bet365. Nick Kypreos, Justin Bourne, Sammy McKee.
I'm getting roasted about the tie thing, boys.
About not
Yeah.
untying your ties?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
It's also one of those things that guys are way too proud of, and I don't want to come off as that guy.
Yeah.
Like, it's,
No,
but
like-
yeah, I mean, you should do
It's
it.
just a discipline. That's all. You lack discipline.
That's for sure.
Yeah,
All right. Something's lacking for the Vancouver Canucks to the point where President Executive Jimmy Rutherford went on record about the situation. Sammy, have you got those clips? It's from a Globe and Mail article. Do you have the quotes exactly? Because he doesn't necessarily mention Pettersson or Miller by name, but he does all but identify them.
There's a lot in this, but I mean, I think one of the big grab quotes out of the article that was by Gary Mason out of Vancouver, I believe, was that we're talking about two of our top players. When you're planning on this team peaking into a contending team, and then you find out that's not going to happen, or at least it's not going to happen with the group we have, then you have to put together a new plan.
Yeah. We've had those conversations. I think the parties understand that. I think they've tried, as you know, something, whatever. It's not going to work. Well, someone has to go. Like the G or the president confirming it's not, there's no solution where they just stay there and work it out.
This is like January 28th here. Hey, Derek, do we have that that clip of JT Miller? And this was, I believe, just before Christmas, December 22nd, Derek tells me. Let's have a listen to JT Miller talking about the circumstances.
You guys, in a sense, of the outer world have created this thing. Like, this isn't a thing. So, am I bothered? No, but you guys are just wasting your time.
How tired are you about hearing of it?
I don't care. You guys want to talk about it? You want to ask me? Ask me all you want. I can bring up PD and we can do the interview together if that would make you guys happy.
It's not a thing. Right?
Well,
what did Jimmy Rutherford say today?
It's a thing.
It's a thing.
I don't care.
It's a thing. He stamped it.
Yeah.
He stamped it today.
Yeah. I totally get the point being made is that the president confirmed a thing that we weren't being told once upon a time. I also don't blame JT Miller for saying what he said when he said it.
I'm okay with you. I'm just not okay with those comments December 23rd and then Jimmy's today and then going,
what happened?
What happened between those comments and Jimmy Rutherford's article today? So,
I hate this guy.
Like, envision now that you're Jimmy Rutherford and you've known that there's a scenario going on and you just watched one of your top players go on camera and talk to the media and the fans and lie.
But he should lie.
No, he should not lie. That's when you turn around and you use the two most famous words in media history.
I plead the fifth. Oh, something
no
else.
comment.
Oh.
No comment would have been better than what JT Miller did December 23rd.
No comment drops a nuke, bud. No comment might as well be, I hate his guts.
The information vacuum then is there for idiots to
interpretation.
I like Miller being like,
it's better than lying.
You know,
it's better than living a lie.
Gotta live a lie sometimes. this cruel world.
You know what? I'm telling you.
Yes.
You know, when you live a lie is when you can kind of brush it under the carpet.
I think they had hopes that they could, Kip.
And fix it.
I think Miller thought they could.
Before anything could get out.
I think they thought they could.
I don't know. Let's ask that Shah, host of Canucks Central, game host for Sportsnet. Always does a great job coming on the show. We really appreciate it. I'm sorry it's always under these circumstances lately.
He's never come on and tell us about the 10-game winning streak.
You know, we just played JT Miller's comments at Christmas talking about basically, come on, it's not a thing. And now we wake up and we see Jimmy Rutherford's comments and he's saying it's a thing. And how do the fans react today?
Oh, I mean, there's a lot of dismay from the fan base that this is coming out again. And, you know, it's not a 10-game winning streak, but it's a 2-game winning streak. And for us, this is the first time in 2 months the Canucks have actually won 2 consecutive games. So there were some good vibes coming off the game. But We don't call Vancouver Hollywood North for no reason. It's not just the movies; it's all the soap opera and drama around this team as well. And Kyper, I mean, you guys have talked about it. We've talked about it. It's been, even acknowledged to some degree by Quinn Hughes and Rick Tocchet a couple months back when they met with the media, and they acknowledged that Pettersson and JT may not be friends, but that's not something that it gets in the way of winning. They've had those situations in the past, but you're right. JT denied it. Pettersson said it's all being made up. And Jim Rutherford came out today and admitted that it is a thing. Now, we all knew this was a thing. The question just comes down to timing. And I get what you were saying there, Bourne, because I don't disagree. Like, I'm all for honesty. But my only thing with this situation today is I just don't understand the upside on this, right? And in a season where the Canucks haven't avoided any of the rakes in their yard, it's pretty much been like Sideshow Bob stepping on every single rake he can. This just seems like another situation where the team is trying to maybe create some level of win a couple games in a row. Let's move past these discussions. And now Jim Rutherford's come out and thrown a big bomb into all of this. And he's being honest, and I know he's always honest in these situations. Again, I just fail to see what the upside is for him to say the things he said today.
It just feels like for a while there, at least on our show, we were saying, why haven't we heard from Rutherford? Like, why no comment? You can't hide forever from this sort of thing. And so for him to come out and say, you guys got us, something's got to happen. It kind of feels like the only way for, to get through this and handle it. So what is the forecast here for this Canucks team and what happens? Because you're in the midst of a playoff race and everything that could go wrong has gone wrong. It still feels to me like a salvageable season. Do I have that read wrong?
And I'm with you. Like, I saw it coming off the game last night. I mean, and again, it's only 2 consecutive wins, but this team hasn't even strung together 2 decent performances. It was a strong road win. It looked a lot like how the Canucks played last year, right? Get off to a lead, add to their lead, suffocate a team in the third period. The result was never really in question. They got saves. They scored on the power play, 5-on-5. They were good. Defensively, they were good. JT played well. Pettersson played well. If you were trying to talk yourself into some landmarks that can lead to you turning it around, only 1 point back at Calgary now after the victory too, and they have a game in hand, but you're right there in the playoff race. And we know how wide open the league is this year, right? I mean, look at even the top teams. They're really good, but all teams have flaws. And not to say the Canucks would make the playoffs and make a run, but it's one of those years where if you make the playoffs, you have talent, you can talk yourself into it being interesting. The question just comes down to, has the drama got to a point where they can't overcome this? Now, the last 2 games look good. I just wonder what this does to the situation. And I'm all for honesty for us, man. Like, listen, this is manna from heaven, right? We can talk about Jim Rutherford laying it all bare to Gary Mason with the Globe and Mail, and that tells you about where things are at. I just don't know if this is just going to add another log to the fire. And it's very clear based on what Jim said, they don't have solutions in the trade market. And he acknowledged that if you're trading Pettersson or JT, they may not even get a second line center back. They might get a center, but he may not even be a top 2 line center. So we have to get the assets back in return and go and find other players. And that's nice and fine and good. How easy is it, though, to have assets and go and get those players? Every single team is looking for a top line center, So I just don't see where the solutions are. And if you're at a point now where if you're willing to take, say, 75 cents on the dollar on Pettersson or 50 cents on a dollar for JT Miller, how does that impact your chances this year? I think you can pretty much burn this year if you're trading one of those 2 guys and taking back a lesser return. And then it comes down to how many years is it going to take for you to reload to give Quinn Hughes a chance to want to be here beyond the next 2 years. So I just don't see a way out via trade. That's an easy solution. I think the best solution has always been these guys figuring it out, winning enough games, and we forget about these distractions. But it's kind of hard to forget about distractions when they keep popping up, even when you won a couple of games.
You're watching and listening to Satiar Shah, host of Canucks Central, game host for Sportsnet. So I imagine there might be a little disappointment watching supposedly one of the teams that may have been talking to Jimmy Rutherford and Patrick Alvey in Carolina with their blockbuster trade for Rantanen. Is that one now team lost? And is there still a focus on the New York Rangers, or is it to the point now where, we don't want to take 60 cents or 75 cents on the dollar, like you said, and we're just going to have to learn to all play along nicely in the sandbox here?
Yeah, and I wonder, I mean, the only thing I could think of as a rationale for what he said is the point you just made. They realize they can't make the trades, and this is kind of last ditch. We're going to lay it all bare, guns a-blazing. Everyone knows what's going on. here's honesty. It's on these two guys. They're the ones sinking our season. And perhaps that jolts them into action and they finally overcome all this strife and act like the professionals are supposed to be, considering they're combining for nearly $20 million in cap hits for both these players. But at the same time, I'm with you as far as the Carolina Hurricanes, because I don't really see them being a fit here. Who knows with Telski? I guess you can never, put it past them if you can make some sort of creative deal with one of the two players. But it seems like the reason the Carolina Hurricanes talks took off is because there was urgency on the Carolina Hurricanes part. And clearly now, based on the fact we know they got Rantanen, they got wind up getting Rantanen. They started accelerating trade talks with the other teams and players that they were interested in, and ultimately chose to go with Rantanen. So Carolina had urgency. The Rangers had urgency. They've now won a few games. They're looking a lot better. And based on the reporting from Elliot Friedman, he believes that, for JT and the Rangers, Hedl, a draft pick and a prospect was certainly something that the Canucks were perhaps willing to do. But really what got in the way, according to some other insiders, including Frank Seravalli, was the Rangers asked for retention. And as long as Rangers want a retention on JT, I just don't know how that's going to work out. And if they want retention, is that a GM thing? Is that a club ownership thing? How much you're looking at the money JT's making long term? So to me, that's an obstacle that has to be overcome first before you get back to the table, because I don't think the Canucks have any interest in retaining for the next 6 years on JT. So my question becomes, where is a team right now that has urgency to get ahead of the trade deadline to give the Canucks an earnest offer? Because so far, based on everything we've heard, the Canucks are getting lowballed, as they should. I mean, they have no leverage. The players are struggling. These guys have big contracts, and teams are trying to get them for 50, 60 cents on the dollar. We get to the deadline in a few weeks. Do people put their best cards on the table? Does somebody come out and say, you know what, we want one of these players? Well, we're going to make an earnest offer. And right now, I just don't see a team that has the urgency to step out of its comfort zone and try to make an offer to the Canucks that they can actually consider. We'll see where things go with Minnesota, because they got Kaprizov injured and what they're looking to do. But this might be a situation where it's not going to end until the trade deadline. And I'm just unsure that unless some situation pops up, that anybody's really going to make the Canucks an earnest offer to acquire one of their top two forwards in JT Miller and Pettersson ahead of the deadline.
Do you see a world where it's not JT Miller? Like, it just feels like all the conversation is like, we're just waiting for Miller to get traded.
Absolutely. I mean, it could definitely be Pettersson. I think based on everything that we've heard at this point, they're considering it and seriously discussing it. It's just such a complicated trade to pull off, right? Like the Natchez one, even Natchez, as talented as he is, his peak hasn't been Pettersson's peak. Now, Pettersson right now is nowhere near his peak, but you can talk yourself into Natchez perhaps being a top line center, a right-handed center, right? And at least being an elite forward. I don't see another elite forward available that somebody's offering for Pettersson. Like even the Sabres, and I know Elliot threw out his proposal of Dylan Cousins and Bowen Byram for Pettersson. I don't know if that moves the needle, right? Like they're interesting players, but maybe a second line center, maybe a second pair of defensemen. And we all know if you want to win in the National Hockey League, you need elite players. The Canucks have one in Quinn Hughes who's playing well. So you have to flip those guys for something elite. And Pettersson perhaps is your better pathway than JT. But again, like right now, I just don't see teams really putting the urgency to make that offer. I do wonder if we get to a point where they make something, they do something that we don't expect. Like, do they move a Demko out of nowhere all of a sudden? We know Besser and his situation. If they don't sign him, he gets moved out. And if you don't move Pettersson and you don't move JT, do we see them take another slice out of the core with two other big players by the deadline?
Sat in our first hour in our Leaf Hour edition. We played the hypothetical game.
Ooh, play it again.
Yeah, well, let's play it again, okay? Morgan Rielly goes back home, lifts his no move for a package that includes JT Miller coming to Toronto. Any chance in your world that could work out for Vancouver, that they'd be interested in a top four defenseman for JT Miller, or do you see a different balance in a deal?
So I do think that would be somewhat intriguing, a legitimate right-hand defenseman, right? And a good leader, a guy that I can think can come into the locker room, I think, and provide perhaps.
Lefty.
No, Morgan's left. Morgan's left.
Right. Oh, sorry. Left.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Left defenseman, but very talented defenseman. They still need to have some of those guys. I can see that being of some level of interest, but the fact they weren't interested in making the Zibanejad swap for JT 1-for-1. Makes me wonder if they're still looking at somebody perhaps a little bit younger and that fits in with the long-term vision of the team. And we all know having a centerman is something that they certainly want to add to the team as well. They have nobody coming in the wings, right? At least on the back end. Tom Galander was 11th overall pick a couple of years ago, playing really well in the NCAA. They have high hopes for him coming up. Elias Pettersson, the defenseman, has played the last couple of games. They have a lot of faith in him long-term. So I think they would prefer to move JT for a center to build around, or somebody that can help them acquire a center. Do they get to a point where they feel like they have to make the best deal possible? And if Morgan Rielly's one of those players, I can see it at least being a consideration for the organization.
Yeah, it's a fascinating one. We were kicking that around too. Are you good on those two fellas? You ready to move?
Yeah,
on?
no. I got one more on you. And that is, oh God, I had so many. Now they're all kind of just in terms of if JT Miller is the guy that they ultimately move, and then they keep Pettersson, does anybody envision what that world would be like for Pettersson staying in as the guy that won out of this thing, and maybe the pressure that it would put on him or the city to deliver? And I mean, is it still a good scenario for Pettersson to survive there and move forward, or is it so critical on him now moving forward that it might not be the best scenario actually winning this thing out?
Right. Well, I don't know if things are going to get any more heated on Pettersson, because right now he's taking the most heat on our post-game shows. I mean, every other text is about Pettersson. Every other call is about Pettersson. Social media is, just burning the player down left, right, and center. And for good reason, right? I mean, he has 59 points in his last 84 games played, including playoffs. It's been rough.
Yeah,
and this is a player who's making a lot of money, right? It's not a lot of production. And he's been good defensively, but you don't pay a guy 11.6 to be a 50, 60 point guy, right? You're talking about you need at least a point per game, and you need to add a lot more. I do believe that if you can't get the value in Pettersson, and it's clear, at least based on what Rutherford said, it seems it's untenable between Pettersson and JT Miller long term, then if you move JT out, does it give you a chance to see if the situation changes, if you do get the best out of Pettersson again? And for this, even the reason of trading him, like, let's say you trade JT and he finishes the season on a hot streak. The team makes the playoffs, he plays decently. At least you're in a better leverage position with Pettersson, aren't you, in the offseason, where he's shown he can regain that play, he can show he can play in a different environment. So as far as managing your assets, and if you're dead set on trading one of them, then it probably makes sense to move JT and see if you can find a way to get more out of Pettersson, even for the simple fact of upping his trade value.
Yeah.
I know I said we would move on, but it's really tough. And I'm going to ask the stupidest question that I feel like we're not allowed to talk about for some reason, but like, what happened? Like, does anyone know? Like, we're all like, he works hard and that guy doesn't, so he's mad at him. And I made that up. I don't know. Like, what happened?
Well, I mean, I don't think any of us, because the thing is, nobody's come out and said exactly what the proverbial smoking gun is, right? I mean, you hear different things and innuendo. Nobody confirms it. So I don't want to go down the rumors you hear about specific incidents that happened or didn't happen. But I think it's really clear that Pettersson's been pushed by certain players on the team, I would imagine JT, to do more, that they know he can do more. And I know coming into this season, and when you read between the lines with everything that Rick Tocchet spoke about for Pettersson coming back to training camp, was we need him to skate more. We need him to just practice a bit harder. We need to get his conditioning up a little bit. He didn't show up to training camp in bad shape. He obviously, they all passed their physicals and all that, but I don't think he was anywhere near the top of the fitness charts as they had a lot of other players. And JT was at the very top of it, and he got a lot of praise from the Canucks head coach. And I think the organization was kind of hoping that Pettersson would have gone to the offseason and really worked on his game even more. Now, he had tendonitis on his knee. He mentioned how that did curtail his training session. So how much of that is he's managing an injury? How much of it is putting the extra work in? So I do think he's been challenged. And I think part of the challenge has been you need to do more, whether it's on the ice, off the ice. We need more out of you. But how you get that message across, I think, is the most important thing. And we all know Pettersson is a different personality than JT Miller. And especially in today's athletes and especially the younger generation, the way you get a message across is really different than how you would get the message across, back even in my day. I mean, I'm just 40 now, but even back in my day, it was, you got yelled at a lot and smacked around a lot if you weren't following orders. And that was kind of what you had to do, right? That's not the way you approach things. And I thought it was really interesting listening to Brad Richardson, who was a former teammate. He was on the Missing Curfew podcast a while back, and he kind of mentioned that when he was a teammate of JT's and Pettersson's, he didn't disagree that what JT was saying to Pettersson was wrong in order to get him to find that other level. But his approach to it was not the right one, and it's hard for you to get through to somebody if your approach isn't the correct one. And I think ultimately that's what it's come down to. Here's a player who's challenging another player, but the way he's gone about it isn't getting respect from the other player. And when you don't have mutual respect, that message doesn't come across. And I just wonder, based on everything Rutherford said today too, that as much as they try to move past it, does it just flare up all the time and put them back in square one?
Sat, is this soap opera bearing the lead that Quinn Hughes is having one of the best seasons in Vancouver Canuck history?
I mean, it's honestly a disgrace that this season, this team misses the playoffs with Quinn Hughes playing the way he has.
Right.
It's an absolute disgrace in a way. So you're talking about the single best season any Canuck has ever had, potentially. He's even better than he was last season. Here's a franchise cornerstone, league-changing player. We're talking about one of the 5 most impactful players in the National Hockey League this season. You might miss the playoffs because 2 guys can't get along. It's an absolute joke. It really is. I mean, we're talking about, guys who get paid a ton. We're talking about all-stars. We're talking about adults, guys who've been given everything in the world to succeed, and you can't get along. You can't be inspired by the guy who's putting the team on his back, who's playing with one hand, who's fighting through everything humanly possible. It's an absolute disgrace if this year goes to waste and Quinn Hughes hasn't created enough motivation for the group to get its act together.
So, is there desperation to move on and start trying to turn the page? Because again, season seems salvageable.
Yeah, I mean, I think so, right? And I want him to win, guys. I want to see this team make the playoffs again. I mean, we've been with Sportsnet 650 since 2017, had one real playoff run, and the most successful year of our station was last year. So trust me, man, we want playoffs. We want to have the team have success. And coming off the game last night on the post game show, we're trying to move the conversation forward. Fans are starving for it, but the noise just keeps popping up. And like I said, this one is somewhat self-inflicted. Now, perhaps Rutherford wasn't anticipating they would win consecutive games because they haven't done so since December 1st. And perhaps, he wasn't afraid of saying what he needed to say. Is this going to be something else that throws them back? But the opportunity's there. As good as Calgary's been, I really don't think they're good enough to keep their pace this entire season. You're going to make the playoffs if you get to 94, 95 points. And if you get your act together, you should be there.
And I assume that you ride Lankin in and, you're going to do this right now without Demko, essentially.
I think for the most part, and, they want to get Demko up to speed again, right? Because they need to have him finding his game. He's under contract next year. But every game's kind of must win right now. And Lankin has been by far the better netminder. And I have faith in Demko, how hard he works, how talented he is. But his game is not where it needs to be right now. And you have to go with the guy who gives you the best chance to win. And without a doubt, that's Kevin Lankinen.
Just in terms of Demko, no one's going back to saying he's still hurt or there's still issues physically with him. Is that been tucked away and it's just now finding his game?
That's what it seems like. There's been no suggestions that he had the back injury. We felt like he had a back spasms, but it was not related to knee, everything that we found out. The question ultimately comes down, guys, to he might be healthy to play, but does he have the same movement and confidence in his joint to play the way he played? And I know Stephen Balaket has talked about how his stance is somewhat different now based on where it was last year. Biomechanically, after the injury and a pretty unprecedented injury of your goaltender, is he going to be able to find that same level athletically? I think that's the biggest question. I think he's healthy, but does he still have the same mobility and flexibility he had prior to the injury?
Last one for me, Sat, and thanks for your time today. Just on Brock Besser, and what do you expect to go down there? What sort of extension would he be looking at?
Well, I think Brock is very much looking at something along the lines of Travis Konechny, and why wouldn't he? You're talking 8 years, $8 million plus. And if you look at the scoring rates for Besser, same draft year, Besser actually has slightly better scoring rates, 5-on-5, and also just overall too. So from a statistical standpoint, he can certainly drive that price. There's no way the Canucks are signing him to that contract. If he wants to be in Vancouver, he's going to have to take significantly less. And the question with Vancouver is, do they truly want to keep this player? And if they're not going to get close to $7-8 million per year over 7-8 years, I think this has no chance of happening. And based on everything we've heard with this team right now and wanting to move forward with the group, are they truly willing to add another long-term contract to a player part of a core who they're clearly dissatisfied with?
Zach, great stuff on a story that just will not go away in Vancouver.
Sorry I had to do that.
We'll check in with you periodically as I don't know, maybe this continues for the next month or not.
God,
but
mercifully not.
We do have a trade deadline sneaking up on us. So one way or another, I think we'll figure this thing out. Thanks for doing this.
Hey, whatever the topic, always fun chatting with you guys. Thanks for your time.
Thanks,
Satiar Shah, host of Canucks Central, game host for Sportsnet.
Yeah, him and Riccio do a great job. Boy. It's just that, like, I wanted to ask about, like, they've won 2 in a row. Hughes is awesome. You know.
Well, he didn't hold back when I asked him about, like,
Hughes?
this storyline, taking away the spotlight off of Quinn Hughes' season.
That was a great answer. It is. It's a tragedy. He's one of the first D in a long time where it's like, that's a Hart Trophy season or Hart Trophy contender, particularly in a year where no one's clear cut at the top of the forwards. And it's just like, he's just playing through this, man. He's the captain through all this smoke.
Yeah.
He must be so pissed.
Yeah, so annoying. Not that he would want the attention maybe, but just to talk about hockey and the team would be nice.
He's pissed, but I'm sure there's a part of him too that just feels as the captain that, what can I do?
I can't fix this.
I can't fix this. And he's a guy that's, I'm sure, why wouldn't he be one of the most confident kind of players around? And yet you go in there and you feel helpless.
Well, how old's JT Miller? 31, 23?
31.
Like, really tough to go to a guy like that and say, hey, stop it. Like, he's a grown man. He's able to make his own decisions.
If, in fact, it's definitive that you just don't know where Quinn would lie on, like, okay, it's your fault.
Yeah.
And it's not your fault, or it's like,
right.
I mean, that's where it's kind of tricky. And I mean, even if you could find out for sure, do you want to? It's really none of my business. You guys just kind of like, it's like your neighbors. There's lots of yelling next door, and you're like, okay, like.
Kind of like you two before the show.
Right.
Yeah, kind of. But you know what I'm saying? It's like to the point where I don't know. You're right. At some point, you got to go, if you're Quinn Hughes as the captain, going back to Alvin or Jimmy Rutherford or Tocchet and said, I tried talking to him. We tried at the Grey Cup party, or we tried last week at dinner, and
Do you think the greatest captain in the world could have fixed this? Like, could Mark Messier have made this go away?
Maybe not the best guy to use in the Vancouver situation.
Not a great example for
well,
fans.
Not the most popular man in Vancouver.
That's what it elbowed them both in practice, though.
I can only speak from my experience as a New York Ranger, and certainly not one in Vancouver. We can get into that in terms of that never stood a chance to begin with. So, in saying that, I think Mark would have just beaten himself up until it got rectified. Mm-hmm. And there are times when Mark Messier has gone to management and said,
that guy can't be here anymore.
We can't win with that guy in that room anymore. And it's not an easy thing for him to say, or any captain, but you have, those are the things that you have to do as a captain, because that's your room, that's your responsibility. You are the alpha dog, whatever you want to call it, but you are the guy that's supposed to be able to fix things in there.
Yeah, Hughes doesn't seem like that big of a presence in that sort of way. I think he's a little more do as I do.
I can only imagine how much he's grown up through the experience.
And no kidding.
Like, forced on him.
Who knows?
How do you not resent if it's Pettersson?
I don't know how this. We don't know how this thing's going to play out, but I can guarantee you, it's going to make Quinn Hughes a better captain for it, because now you're starting to identify things, and before, where you could probably look at a situation and let it slide, you're going to be a lot more wary the second time around and say, hey, listen, you know what? Can't talk to that guy like that. Yeah. Or you can't do this, and that's not good for our team.
Here's where this could go. I've seen it.
Yes. And we don't want to lose that guy. we want to keep him on our side. We want to be able to feel like we've got each other's backs and that we're fighting for each other. You keep beating him down, and all you're going to do is get him to turn on us, and then that's not how we win.
Yeah.
So tough situation for Quinn Hughes being a new captain and a guy that is supposed to be, large and in charge in that room, and it's too big of a beast right now for him.
Yeah, 2 wins in a row for the Canucks by points percentage. They're a breath out of the second wild card spot. They're going to be
Flames
all right.
just won't go away.
They won't. But I mean,
but
they're not shooting in the net very much. Like Dustin Wolf's been incredible. Can he drag them all the way there? Maybe. But I bet on Vancouver.
He believes he does, and that's sometimes a big part of the battle.
Buddy,
he's like, we're making it. That's what he's saying. We're gonna get in without
and everyone's like, we are
without
okay.
the
Let's
real
do it.
official guarantee.
Yeah.
There's no question that this guy believes in himself
Curious
and
to
the team.
see if they sell it all at the deadline or what they do. If they just hang on.
No, I don't think they can. But really, like,
but
what is there to sell?
Mm-hmm.
It's Anderson's not like a sellable asset that you've got to make a hard decision on this year. He's got another year on his deal. Kadri's locked in. Huberdeau's not going anywhere. So what is really left there?
Yeah, you're right. No, Kuzmenko, Mantha.
Nah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no, you're right.
Game time?
Game time.
It's game time presented by Bet365. Visit the app for latest odds and find out why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 19 plus. Ontario only. Please play responsibly. 3 Canadian teams in action tonight. 2 of them against each other. The Montreal Canadiens are hosting the Winnipeg Jets. The Montreal Canadiens, pretty big underdogs on home ice, as you would imagine. Plus 145 on the money line, minus 170 for the Jets.
Can I get Jets minus 1.5?
You can have that. It is plus 150, Jets minus 1.5.
There's your number.
Okay. With Team Canada goalie in net tonight, maybe Sam Montembeault, I'm not sure. Maybe Jacob Dobish. Either way, I don't mind that bet from you there, Borny. And the aforementioned Calgary Flames hosting the Washington Capitals tonight as the great chase continues. No? Okay. Tough crowd here. It's plus 125 for the Calgary Flames, minus 150 for the Washington Capitals on the money line. And a really good one later on in Las Vegas. The Vegas Golden Knights playing host to the Dallas Stars. Vegas Golden Knights are minus 125 on the money line. I'm sure Alex Pietrangelo will play 26 minutes tonight with his ailments.
Great, I've heard.
His ailments are just brutal. Dallas Stars plus 105 on the money line. So there's they're a bit of an underdog and a bit of value, in my opinion. And the biggest underdog of the night is the Chicago Blackhawks in Tampa taking on the Lightning. They're plus 325. Tampa, minus 425 on the money line. That is a wild number. So there you go.
Do you think if you called Kyper and I and were like, I can't come to work today, I have ailments, we would have follow-up questions?
I did have some ailments after a trip to Detroit. Anyways, that was game time. Presented by Bet365. Visit the app for latest odds and find out why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 19 plus. Ontario only. Please play responsibly.
Okay, let's take a quick break. When we return, we'll talk ailments. So we'll talk about the Minnesota Wild losing their top scorer for a month. Yeah. We'll talk about the latest NHL team to put a for sale sign up.
Oh,
we will?
on.
Oh, yeah. Up when we return.
All right.
To Real Kyper and Bourne. Hey, Kypreos, Justin Bourne, Sammy McKee. As a reminder, this hour, Real Kyper and Bourne brought to you by Bet365. All right, little cleanup around the National Hockey League. Minnesota Wild star Kirill the Thrill Kaprizov will need surgery on a lower body injury, which will keep him out for at least a month. Now, the Wild are holding well in the Central Division, third, but never a good thing losing your top scorer.
No, hanging on. And also, Kirill's due a big contract, right? Like everyone thinks that he's now eligible to sign, if I'm not mistaken. Right? We've passed Jan 1. He's got one more year. I think he could sign now.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think he is.
I wonder if
Sammy, check on our little cap friendly or wages or whatever you call it.
What would you like me to check?
Kirill, does he have actually a one more year before he goes UFA? Yeah, for sure. Because if If he was UFA, we'd know about it.
Yeah.
He'd be.
So curious because they did say they would spend basically any dollar amount asked of them. So
He didn't get the Rantanen treatment, that's for sure.
no kidding. He's got next year at $9 million, but I think that would make him eligible now.
Yeah.
Might be a good time for Kirill because they're going to be shutting down in less than 2 weeks for the Four Nations.
Yeah, like he's not going to miss a ton of hockey.
Right.
Sounds like something he'll be able to return with lots of season left, so that's good for them.
So if Kirill was playing in the Four Nations.
You love the Four Seasons.
I don't know. I really want to book a room at the Four Seasons. That's what it
Spa
is.
day.
Yeah.
If he was playing in the Four Nations, would surgery be a good excuse to miss the tournament?
Oh, I think we would probably greenlight that. No judgment here if he needs surgery.
Okay, where's your judgment anywhere else?
Can I ask you?
Let's have it.
I mean, we talked I buried Pietrangelo yesterday. You guys were a little nicer than I was. But have you heard anything about like reaction to this? Like it's
Yeah, it's not sitting well with some other hockey clubs, I think, because
So sorry, Vegas.
Vegas.
It's not just Pietrangelo. Teams are
Well, listen, I think I think for sure it's a collective decision between Alex and the hockey club too. And I think a lot of teams feel a lot more pressure than Vegas does to make their stars available for this because every single one of them can use that same ailment excuse.
Love
that
our veteran to get some rest.
But want to get ready for a big push to the Stanley Cup. It's like, well, no kidding. So does everybody else.
Like the Leafs would love for Austin Matthews to rest for 2 weeks.
You're not, Quinn Hughes, come on, like keep going.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody would love to get ready for the Stanley Cup playoffs. And
You see Jarvis's comments today?
no.
They asked him, what position are you going to play? Who are you going to play with? And he's like, I'll play effing right D if they ask me to.
He's dropping F-bomb.
He sure did.
Love it.
I don't care. You put me anywhere, I'll play it. And that's Canadians are like, love him. Seth Jarvis fan. Petro's
I
out.
don't care.
You mentioned like rival teams. The one that I think about the most in this situation is the Edmonton Oilers, who, if you want to make it to the Stanley Cup final, are probably going to have to go through the Las Vegas Golden Knights at some point, or the Vegas Golden
And
Knights.
you're going to need 50 points from Connor in the postseason or whatever he had left.
And
30
so the Oilers are like, okay, so we have to send our best guy who's going to be the face of the whole thing. He's going to have to do a million interviews. He's going to have to play. Like, he's going to
and
be
in
the most
Kip's words, there's just going to be cameras everywhere.
He's going to be the
all
most
access,
important
which
guy.
he hates.
And we have to send him. But Pietrangelo has an ailment, and he's the top defenseman for our bitter rival, but he doesn't have to go. I'd be so pissed if I was the Oilers.
Was it
so
you,
pissed.
JB, that said the other day that he'll get replaced by Evan Bouchard, and then Bouchard will get hurt?
Oh, my God.
Now, I
Oh
said
my
that's
God.
the worst case
What a
scenario.
nightmare that is. That's a nightmare.
You know, the other thing, too, is this is like even baffles me is, okay, why do you announce it like now? If you're going to announce it, do it
right at the
2
deadline.
weeks from now.
Hold the shoot a little later.
Way later.
Like, hey, we're getting close, and I'm still not right. I just can't go.
It's a way easier
It's
sell.
crazy to be like a month
Why
from now, I'm not ready.
Now. Why now?
And I'm playing 22 minutes a night.
Right?
It's weird.
So
What is he playing?
I
it's
think he
just
played over
to me,
20
to me
last
the
game.
timing's as baffling as maybe more than the decision.
Oh, my God. Pietrangelo's last 3 games, which were 3 games in 4 nights in this past week, 25 minutes, 23 minutes, 24 minutes.
Boy, I'd kill for that ailment.
That's a good ailment, boy.
Pretty important guy.
Anyway, I resent it a little bit.
Well,
That's
I
where we
think,
can all land on
yeah,
that.
you're probably not the only one.
I'm going to make a case tonight on the television that Chris Tanev should get a spot.
No.
Yes, I am.
Okay,
Cabo.
the Leafs don't want that,
Cabo.
I'm not the Leafs.
right?
I just, you look at the potential replacements and
But if he wants to go, you can't tell him no when you're sending Mitch Marner there,
No,
or and that goes
exactly.
with any other
Mitch plays 23 a night and kills
situation.
Fenways. Yeah.
right?
I don't know but I know they had him fairly high up on the list of guys that they liked when they were making the decisions the first go around.
But there'll be enough guys, I think, to push hard. Like there's no hiding Seth Jarvis's excitement.
No, he's
right?
thrilled.
I hope the guys put on a good show. That's all.
Oh, I'm pumped. I'm pumped about it.
Pumped. I'm really, really. I mean, listen. God loves Sweden. God love Finland. But Saturday night, Bell Center. Just maybe even go to an establishment, boys. Watch that game against the States. That's as good as it gets. Like
I'm thrilled.
I'm thrilled. Really excited.
Yeah, and I think led by Connor McDavid.
Who's saying how thrilled he is to play with Sid?
They'll put on a good show. Sid, it will be led.
David,
it will be led by McDavid.
McKinnon.
Yep.
Ooh,
Yeah.
brother.
So you said something about Pittsburgh?
Well, Fenway Group. There's they're gonna put part of their hockey club up for sale, and maybe even more if there's an attractive number. It seems like everything's gone not haywire, but it's been well established by many NHL owners that Tampa Bay Lightning were evaluated at roughly $2 billion, and there's some cash to be getting out of that team.
It's like flipping a home, right? They buy the team 3 years ago?
Yeah.
They just bought it, but valuations have been going so high so fast that I'm sure they see an opportunity to maybe retain some stake in it while making back the money they already put in.
Allow me to take the low-hanging fruit.
Please.
They saw 2 years of Dubas running the team like, we're out.
Well, they may look at the future there and go, ooh, we don't have a generational superstar here. This could get bleak.
Is it even worth mentioning the ripple effect of Rantanen has led some to believe or talk about Sidney Crosby
I'm sorry.
being moved?
Well, on Friday night, in the whole hootenanny that was going on with all those guys getting traded,
The nanny was hooting.
there was some rumblings, and I believe it was Kevin Weeks who sent out the tweet with the picture of the Pittsburgh skyline
With eyeballs.
with eyeballs in the middle of everybody being super horned up about all these trades and they're making space. Turns out it was part of a sale. Good timing by Kevin. Everybody got a lot of eyeballs on that. But, them freeing up space and the Sid and Nate connection and the crappy Penguins losing to the Sharks.
It's got to be.
You can't help but draw some lines here.
I had said that I thought what will happen is the Penguins will refuse to roll over. They'll win enough to get in that little mix. They'll even buy at the deadline, and they'll miss by a point or two. They'll be competitive. Hold on.
And you're way off that.
Way off. Last 3 games they played, I would say the teams that I consider 3 of the 4 worst in the league, Ducks, Kraken, Sharks, and they lost 5-1, 4-1, and 2-1. Almost beat the Sharks. So, it's over.
They are now just ahead of the Buffalo Sabres in the Eastern Conference. And that
They're
is
dead
the only
last
team.
in the East.
No, they're one ahead. Sorry, they're 7 ahead of the Sabres who are last.
So there is a chance they will be one of the few teams with lottery balls to draft a generational talent. I don't know if Schaefer's that or Hoggins or whatever, but they could be bad enough if they want to admit they're bad.
So whether or not they're selling a portion of this team or perhaps more, this could be one of the worst times
To
sell for Pittsburgh.
I mean, I don't know about that. Do you need to be winning for them to see what the value is?
What are what assets are you buying? You're buying Crosby at the end of his career. You're buying Malkin and Letang at $7 million, and they're at the end of their careers. They've got no prospects.
Yeah.
They've got a building that's half empty now. I'm thinking discount.
Oh, is this your guy?
No,
is this your guy getting in now?
No. I'm just saying,
okay.
What was your Pittsburgh now?
What would a new owner have to look forward to at the end of Sidney Crosby's?
32 franchises. They come available once every few years to get a little piece of one. You're in the league.
I get all of that, but there's also assets that come with a purchase.
No, you're not buying it at its peak.
But it's not coming with a nice shiny toy.
No, it's certainly not. I don't know many franchises that sell when you're about to get the Stanley Cup.
I would also say that they are 2 seasons away from being the least attractive team to buy in the league. in terms of
2 away.
like. I mean, they still have.
Look at where they're in the
I
standings
know,
now.
but like you still have Sidney Crosby on the team. You still have Evgeny Malkin on it. You still have the idea of some superstars on your team, but their contracts are up soon. Once they're gone, it's scorched earth, bad for a long time.
You know, they have a ton of picks, and they have a chance to bottom out and grab a good player. Like, if they admit they're bad now, it would be awesome for them. It's the best thing they could do is look in the mirror and go, God, we suck.
They cannot
They stink.
trade.
Kip,
They cannot trade Sidney Crosby.
well,
it's
no,
not
unless Sid wants to get traded, you can't. But you trade Malkin.
The
You
decision
can trade
was,
Carlson.
The decision was made in the summer. Okay, if you were going to
No
move him,
argument here.
you would have moved. If they move him now, everybody should be fired on the spot for not being able to figure it out in the summer and embarrassing him in January.
Yeah, this is not fun for Sid. Not fun at all.
Plus,
but
he's, going to probably move into ownership the moment he retires,
maybe Sid will buy a piece.
right? So
Imagine player owner.
He's like, I wish I didn't take a
What do you mean?
50% discount every year I played.
So just like do
What's
the
that?
Tom Brady thing where he's just immediately in ownership and runs the whole show.
I think it's there if he wants it.
Owns 1% of the team.
I gotta tell you, he wants it. Like, this doesn't seem like the type of guy that's just gonna disappear, does it?
But wouldn't, like,
I would.
He could be a
but-
Joe Sakic there
Yeah.
no one's listening to
with
Pittsburgh,
ownership.
are they?
Hey,
Does he really want to tie himself to living in Pittsburgh the rest
I
of his
haven't, I
life?
haven't been in Pittsburgh in a long time. Enjoyed my time there.
but there's
a nice city.
there's ownership in play. right.
Offered by ownership, or how would that work? Do you
Yeah.
think there's some in his current contract?
No, you're not allowed to do that according
Right.
to the CBA.
But you can.
Yes, you can have a piece of dust in your eye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah,
Right? Think about it.
maybe when you're done.
First of all, this guy spent his whole career never the highest paid guy in the league.
Yeah.
Think about that for a second.
He's like, hey, I'm going to play for 8-7. I'm worth 16. So let's maybe work something out after to reimburse me that. How about that?
It just, there's obvious biases with watching a Dubas team fail and me being happy about it. They're minus 40 goal differential, second worst team in the Eastern Conference. But I love Sid. Sid's my favorite hockey player of all time. My favorite maybe athlete of all time. And now we have to watch him wallow away on the worst team in the league. Like, this sucks. We were excited because they were going to be in a playoff conversation and they were going to be fighting. And now this just sucks.
No, I listen.
It sucks.
It's not a new conversation.
I know.
We've had this
But
conversation
we were excited because they
before
were
he
decent.
signed.
We were excited because they were decent.
Therefore, Sid had this conversation.
I know, Kip. I
and
know.
he
It just-
chose to stay.
Totally get it.
And that's on Sid too.
100%. No denying that. It just sucks for the millions and millions of Sid fans in this country who aren't going to get to see him play relevant hockey for the rest of his
he's
career.
still really good.
He's unbelievable.
really, really good.
Like, he's just not going to play another. If he stays with Pittsburgh, he will
Yeah.
never play another relevant NHL game again.
The
He won't play
legacy
another
of being a one jersey
Amazing.
player, is it worth not competing for a cup?
when you're
in your
still
game?
really good.
Yeah. I don't know. And it's really tough because you don't want anyone to be to blame. You don't want to tarnish your legacy, which you're going to live on for all the years after that.
Like I said,
He's had a pretty good career.
this
Well, yeah, but
All-
does he want to just do
all these
this?
scenarios were answered when he resigned this summer.
Yep.
And the answer was yes, yes, yes. I'm
Yes,
okay.
yes,
I'm
yes.
okay.
See, I
Yes, I'm
think
okay. I'm okay.
No
I'll
one
stay.
ever believes when they're elite players that they're going to be bad. I don't think Sid thought they were going to be just ahead of the Sabres for 15th in the conference. He didn't see this coming.
Well, it's going to be fun to watch him play with McDavid.
He might be just be full of energy.
He might be very good because he
Yeah.
is very good. All right.
Well, wait. 2 weeks from now, Sid Crosby, Connor McDavid, teammates. Can't wait. Our thanks to Brad May in our Leaf Hour edition of our show and Satiar Shah from Canucks Central in our National Hour. Enjoy your game tonight. We're back here tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. It's the Real Kyper and Bourne Show.